look at the Breeders' Cup, Toast of New York. That was one where we were thinking that it'd be a certainty to be results changing. I've been racing in France, and it's really not uncommon to hear the noise go, and that's it. And there's going to be an inquiry, and I have seen horses thrown out. It's difficult, but then my argument would be, I think you'd be very unlucky if that's your first ever bet to then see that. It is still quite rare, and I do think perhaps if you were the other way around, you're talking through your pocket in a negative fashion.
Well, you may be, but I saw a race on Sunday at the new Chelmsford City, and I didn't even have a bet on the race. And it was won by TriStar, it was ridden by Adam Kirby. And I would have felt really aggrieved if the first had kept that race, which it did. The second horse didn't get the race.
You felt it should have been awarded to the second?
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your view on that, Joe? Did you see that?
I did, yeah, and I thought that was down to the horse. Adam Kirby, the jockey, tried everything he could to keep the horse in a straight line, stop him from veering. So Kirby should not be punished for that, had that be changed. To change the result, you do set a precedent, and it's something that everyone will then be saying. It's something that in some cases I believe should happen. There was a couple of years ago, Falmouth Stakes, Sky Lantern, Elusive Kate. I don't know how Elusive Kate kept that race, personally. But it happened. If you start doing it, it has to happen a lot more. Like, say, in France, it happens quite a lot. Yeah. Glen Eagles got thrown out on Arc Day.
It's consistency, isn't it? That's
but
the one thing.
Should it go the other way, like the French? Because we saw a lot of the big races.
It's not uncommon, is it, for them to turn around and throw a result out? I guess you pay money, you take a chance. In this country, if you have the winner and he's interfered with the second horse, you're probably going to be all right. You only have to look at the Gold Cup of last year.
Mine always finished second, I think. That's why.
Compared to other countries, we've got it all right, haven't we?
I think we're fair. I think
we're fair.
And 9 times out of 10, the interference doesn't make enough difference to cost a race, I think.
You have to look at it as well. You're having a bet. You are gambling. So you take that.
As I said, I didn't have a bet on the race on.
See, I'd be more
disgruntled. First past the post, but both would get it anyway. The only way you don't get it is on exchanges, so you would get the win anyway.
I'm not quite sure whether the new person going racing, whether they even take that really in what's happened. What the new race going...
If the other way round first and it comes second, then they would, wouldn't they?
Yeah. They're more upset for National Hunting is that when the tapes go back and the horse doesn't run... and they don't get the money back. That's where they get upset.
Have now.
That's what they don't get.
How do you think that new rule's working with the slow intro into the...
Very good. I think
it has.
I think it's very good.
Interesting trainers come out this evening in the Racing Post and said that he thinks it's a disaster waiting to happen. He thinks that it could cause incidents and accidents.
It's everything in racing. I don't know what it is about racing. We're so slow on the uptake. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to actually say, all of a sudden after all these years, I thought, actually, let's make them walk into the start. It's such a simple... I think
the foam of football, isn't it? That's a foam of football.
I think some of the genius are people like Harry Skelton, who, do you remember at the start of the season at Chepstow, managed to just nick a race by just trotting off into the distance, just walking up, and he was gone. And that's the one thing. We always want to see... In this country, I don't think it's so bad. Ireland and France can be a bit worse, but seeing races run at a true pace. I mean, Matt, you probably look at this a bit more in your higher class racing if you're looking globally, but some of the Irish races, I mean, you look at a horse like Little King Robin, who just goes, and suddenly... They're looking behind. In the bumper that Identity Thief won, a horse nearly stole that from the front, and it was an outsider. That's what I think the new starts, I hope, will help with and make people go. That's the one concern I have at pace angles. I do think some of them have been nicked from the front a little bit.
Now, another subject that was probably more... in the news last year was the Barney Curley gamble. I think it may have been around about this week, or certainly in a couple of weeks' time it happened. But it does occur to me the handicap side of things. How do you work out the handicap marks and stuff?
What, for his gambles? I'm not informed. Can I just make that clear? I'm not in any way
What I mean is in general. And some, we talked about the winner at the Lanzarote, raised how many pounds? £19.
Yeah.
I mean, how does the inconsistency of the handicapper is a bit concerning in some cases, because I noticed, a horse might be pulled up, and it's dropped £2. I mean, where do they get...
Yeah, but it depends who the trainer is, circumstances,
well, I'm not
what the
sure
horse has
be careful
done.
saying that. I'm not sure whether that's taken into consideration at all, Sam. But, about handicapping... Well, that's, the way I look at handicaps, and I look at it very as it is. But, of course, if the handicapper took that view... Every horse would be handicapped out of everything. You've got to give them a chance to continue on an upward curve. My point I've always made is that the handicapper... Now, the handicapper's taken a very, very positive view, for example, of the Lanzarote. He's clearly thought to himself that the form makes complete sense, and that's why he's put it up like he has T for 2. I would question whether that is quite the fact, and I think he's T for 2. He's been very, very harshly treated in there, and I've actually got it underperformed.
But he might never win a race again because of that.
But Lizzie Kelly, really good jockey, great to see her doing well. Do we think a more seasoned professional jockey perhaps
why should
wouldn't
they,
have extended away? Well, because they're going to go up.
You are absolutely right there, though. And that's my point. You get a really good jockey, or nick it by half a length and it will go up a couple of pounds. Where a horse in the mud has won by 22 lengths goes up 19
pounds. And she's not. If you watch the race back, she's not flogging it for everything it's worth and pushing it out. The horse is just being naturally allowed to run at his rhythm and finish the race well.
See, I keep coming back to an Emma Lavelle horse, which is a Junction 14. Won a race, I think, probably 13 months ago in December. Was raised so many pounds. And from a young horse point of view, it really gave me the impression, I'm going to follow this next time. But the handicap mark that was given it prevents it from winning another race.
I feel bad for the owners.
It's actually turned out that Junction 14 form, the marks actually turned out to be just about right.
A year later, though.
Later on. But that's what I mean, it takes that long. And the thing with when I do my ratings, I mean, obviously we start, the values raters class act will be coming starting next Tuesday. And I'll go in great depth into kind of, how I work out the form. But just to give people an example, at home of how to do that, if anyone's interested in private handicapping, is that you need to find a horse in the race. You need to find a common denominator, which is a horse that you believe in the race that has ran up to its form. So a horse that has handled conditions, done it before, and you've watched the race and you think, that horse is run its race. For example, say it was Santu Bob who finished third in that race, beating 9 lengths behind Three Musketeers. Now, going into the race, I had the horse rated 153. So Three Musketeers off a level weight, so you were 9 1/4 beating, you would say, well, Three Musketeers had run to a mark of 164. I had to question that once I knew that the horse had broke blood vessels. So then he couldn't become the common denominator. I had to go further back, and I used the fourth horse, was Antares. Antares before it ran behind Black Leon. Black Leon, I gave a mark of 155. So through that evaluation, I then tied it in to get Three Musketeers now down to a mark of 152.
So you promised to go into that much detail when you
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But I mean, what you're saying is dependent on there's a consistency of a horse that you need to find, which is a consistent handicap mark throughout.
Exactly.
And base it around that.
Absolutely, you need to find that. Some horses are very in and out. Some go, in and out, and some horses you just think are reliable, and you think you're going to be my common denominator for that particular form line.
Okay, Sam.
I was just going to say, wait and see when you get to Cheltenham Festival. There's nothing better than trying to sift your way through some of those handicaps and
on a final day.
And you go all the way through, and you can still get beat by something that's come out of nowhere, and you look back through the form and you go, oh, well, there's nothing there to support that. So I guess from your point of view, it's a constantly changing puzzle, and it's one of those that we all, as punters, love trying to do. It seems ridiculous on the face
we've got
of
a couple of minutes, actually. I just want to talk to you about small fields. Oh, before you kick the table down.
That's how he feels about them. He's that
How do
angry.
you feel about small fields? We had an instance a couple of weeks ago whereby we had Saturday's racing. It was all 3 or 4 runners and not much quantity. I mean, would you prefer a big 25-runner handicap to a 5 or 6 runner thing?
Well, when it comes to a handicap, I do like to have a few in there. It does make it quite exciting, and I'm sure it makes more fun to pick through the form then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So much more form lines for you, Matt.
Yeah.
But when it comes to some of these handicaps and there's only 7 runners or less, and you're thinking for a punter it takes the each way value out of it, which quite a lot of people do, especially in a handicap. You're taking a chance on a lower weight coming off a break and things like that, and you think big price, go each way to make myself a bit of money or just to enjoy the race. Quite a lot of first-time punters do like each way betting.
Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
I'm exactly the same, though. We'll get
But we're talking about a
six.
6-runner race on Saturday, which even without Sprinter Sack was quite competitive.
Absolutely.
You can have 5 runners there, 3 of which could win the race.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't got a great problem with small fields. I look at handicaps as more value. There's obviously more runners, but I mean, this is a very attractive race for me when we've got Twilight in at 8 to 1. Twin Light.
People are going to be confused now, thinking, what horse is this?
Twin Light. I mean, honestly, before when I sit down, and I would recommend anyone who's into that to read and form to have a go, is never look at the odds before you sit down and look at the race. Make your own decision, and then look what the bookmakers offers. And sometimes your eyes pop out. Like this
this
Twin Light. I had 9 to 4, which I've got 8 to 1. So
Have you
working
got on?
out. Not yet, because I didn't know he was running, but until Sam said, I can't wait to get off.
He's been fan waiting for
I think we've got to applaud some of the smaller trainers. My local trainer, Zoe Davison, who put her horse in and picked up third place because Shelford fell, and they picked up £4,000. If you're not scared to run, if I had a horse that's arguably average, I'd put it in these races and pick up some good prize
You've got to
money.
be very careful again, the close proximity. I mean,
Yeah, but
this
is where the handicapper's kind. See, I watch those races closely, and I always handicap them because the handicapper won't take a dim view of that. And quite often you see a horse, and everyone says, "Well, it's
potted round.
It's round 5 lengths beyond the new one. New one couldn't possibly run that." And you find out later in the season that horse is extremely well handicapped because that form actually is true.
But you're very true on that kind of thing. Because if you watch in Ireland, some of Undersow's races, where it's like 2 different races, half the field's in a different race because they don't want to get near it.
Okay.